What's up, everybody? Jimmy Smith, UFC 249 post-fight. Gotta own all my picks. I thought it was a great night of fights. I really did. Of course, like everybody else in MMA, I was concerned about fighter safety and all these things, and hopefully everything works out over the next couple weeks. That'll really tell us how things are going. But this one night, once the fight started and until they ended, it was finally just about MMA, and that was a lot of fun. It was great to finally see that, and it was good to go online and see all these people talking about it and be able to just kind of dive into our sport and for a moment, for those few hours, feel like things were somewhat back to normal. We're watching people beat other people up and enjoying it. We got a great night of fights. So that return to normalcy for that amount of time was really great to have. Really awesome. So let's see how I did. I went 3-3 on the undercard. Ryan Spann over Sam Alvey. That's what I predicted. I thought Spann would outstrike him, and he did. Sam Alvey had just enough power to kind of keep Spann at a distance. And it seemed like every time Spann was ready to do something big, he would come with that check left hook and just kind of stop him in his tracks and make him back off a little bit. But I thought Spann was more active, more athletic, landed the better shots. Sam Alvey, I think that's 4 in a row for him. That's going to be hard to come back from. But good fight by Ryan Spann. Bryce Mitchell, Charles Rosa. That was a wipeout from beginning to end. I agree that it was 30-24. I thought they were all 10-8 rounds. It was like one of those things, and if you're a jiu-jitsu person and you've actually trained in this, you'll understand those moments when you're training with somebody who's just better than you. And you're just looking at that 5-minute clock like, when is it going to go off? You're defending. You're trying not to get choked out. You're trying not to get finished. You're miserable. You're underneath somebody who's just better than you at this. And all you're waiting for is that final buzzer. That's how it felt for Charles Rosa the whole time. That's what it looked like to me. Like, he was just like, oh, God, when is this going to be over with? This guy's just kicking my ass. One thing I want to say is I've never seen that many twister attempts in one fight ever. Kept going for that. And the twister is one of those moves where once you're in it and it's locked in, it's really brutal because it twists the back. You know, it's a really brutal submission. So Rosa having to defend those over and over and over again. He's not walking right today. Like, I'm sure his hips are tweaked, his back is tweaked, because there were times when it was locked up pretty good. He was able to kind of beast his way out of it. And even when you don't get it, you're still twisted in that position, trying to salvage that arm that he's trying to get behind his head and everything. So you're in this twisted, awkward position. But Bryce Mitchell looked absolutely fantastic. An interesting question somebody asked me. They said, what do you think about him and Crone Gracie? Crone's just better on the ground. As good as Bryce Mitchell is, MMA grappler and all that stuff, that is fantastic. Crone is better. Now, does Crone have the complete game? That's the interesting part. We saw against in the Cub Swanson fight, he wasn't able to get the fight to the ground at all. So could Bryce Mitchell out-grapple him? No. But Bryce Mitchell might be able to beat him in an MMA competition. It'd be fun to see. So I don't think that's a bad fight at all. But on the ground, I think Crone's just next level up. But great win for him. Really fantastic. Vicente Luque versus Nico Price. And by the way, I picked Bryce Mitchell to win. Vicente Luque over Nico Price. Doctor stoppage. That's what I figured too. Vicente Luque just a little bit slicker than Nico Price. Incredibly exciting fight. But if you saw the pre-fight breakdown, when I saw that their first fight, the physical gifts Nico Price has, which is he's awkward, he's very strong for his build, he generates tremendous power. Well, Vicente Luque has already faced that before, and you kind of saw that confidence of like, I faced this guy before. I'm not surprised by any of his physical gifts. And that shot he landed over the eye, that was brutal. Bang, just immediately, and it closed up. And I thought it was a good stoppage. That eye was swollen shut really bad. But I don't think Nico Price's stock dropped. He's incredibly exciting. Fans want to see him again. Vicente Luque, I think the Wonder Boy Thompson loss elevated him, where he fought a crafty, cagey opponent who's very experienced and has a very difficult style, and he learned from that. And I think he came back better. Great for him. I think he's going to be a contender for a long time. Carlos Esparza versus Michelle Waterson. I was wrong on that one. I picked Michelle Waterson to win it. I thought Carlos Esparza won. I know some people had it the other way. I thought Carlos Esparza won. She mixed it up well. She got the takedowns when she needed them. Michelle Waterson maintained distance well, but wasn't able to land any banging shots that were able to kind of turn the tide a little bit. I thought Carlos Esparza won it. I understand other people thought that Michelle Waterson won it, but I picked Waterson to win and she didn't. So that's when things kind of went off the rails for me. I won the first three. I lost the last three on the undercard. Alexei Olynyk versus Fabricio Werdum. I really thought Werdum looked old in this fight. His striking didn't look sharp. He looked flabby. He looked slow. He looked awkward against a guy in Alexei Olynyk who doesn't have great striking. He's never looked like a fantastic kickboxer in any of his previous fights. And he outstruck Fabricio Werdum. I thought this would be a submission battle, and Fabricio Werdum, being the superior submission guy, would have the edge. Well, he couldn't get the fight to the ground consistently. Reaching takedown, super slow, didn't commit with his hips. The blasting double leg power wasn't there. Didn't look that technical when it came to the takedown. And when he got on top, he was able to do some good work. You saw almost finish the Kimura a couple times. He still had excellent jiu-jitsu, but he couldn't get there. He couldn't wade through the striking, get his takedown going enough to make his jiu-jitsu the factor it had to be in this fight. So and we can make all kinds of comments about, he's coming off suspension for PEDs. Now that he can't use them, was that a big factor? Certainly possible. I don't really know. It could be he's just freaking 42 years old and his body won't keep up anymore. But Fabricio Werdum, to me, looked like a spent force, like a comparatively close fight, but he got outstruck by a guy who doesn't have great striking. So that's not a good sign at all. So Fabricio Werdum, his future is somewhat in question. Alexei Olynyk gets another win over a former champion. That's great. And he kind of stays in that 10 to 15 range in the heavyweight division. Anthony Pettis, Donald Cerrone. I picked Donald Cerrone to win this one. I think he thought he would bounce back after 3 straight losses, and he didn't. He looked... I tweeted that he looked slow, like maybe the wars are catching up to him a little bit more than they had previously. And somebody said, he's always a slow starter. Somebody tweeted that back at me. And I said, it's not about the start. Throughout the fight, his punches looked slow. It wasn't like he started slow and then built up and got better. He seemed labored. His timing didn't look great. It just seems like this, the cowboy style of short notice fight and I go to war. And it's just, you can't do that over and over and over. It catches up with you eventually. And I think we saw a Cowboy Cerrone that has just kind of turned that corner. And he's just not as sharp as he used to be. Now, it used to be he could be sharp against certain guys at certain places in the card and when there wasn't the big lights weren't on him. This is that instance where, main event of the prelims is where he would normally shine. Main event, Ultimate Fight, UFC Fight Night, that kind of thing. That's where he would shine. And he didn't. I think he looked, a bit old in this fight. And if he was going to look good, this is a position he would look good in. And he didn't. And that's a problem, I think, for Cerrone. I just think those years and years and years of wars have finally caught up with him. They catch up with everybody, and I think that's exactly what happened in this fight. So on the prelims, I got the first 3. I was inaccurate for the last 3. So I batted 500 on the prelims. But on the main card, I got them all, 5 for 5. I'm not patting my own back. I've said many times it's basically an educated guessing game, and it happened to work out for me. Greg Hardy, Yorgan De Castro. De Castro started out with good leg kicks, and I thought, okay, he might have something to really bank on against Greg Hardy, and he didn't use it to set up the rest of his offense. Leg kicks are great, but I can count on one hand the number of times in all the years I've called MMA and been around MMA, I've seen leg kicks finish a fight, right? Rarely does a guy go down and just like, all right, I can't take any more leg kicks. It happens. It doesn't happen that often. You have to use the leg kick to set up the rest of your game. And he didn't have that next level offense to do that. If the leg kicks are working, that sets up everything. You have a guy who's slowing down, he's worried about his leg, and that's when you come with a combination that knocks him out. We never saw that next level combination. So in round 2, he started running out of gas, and the more athletic Greg Hardy stayed behind the jab, was able to move a little bit, throw some combinations, and was able to win the fight. So the disappointing thing is I thought Yorgan De Castro had the tools and the skills to beat Greg Hardy, but he didn't capitalize on the opportunities the leg kicks presented him, and the better athlete was able to stay in there and wear him down. And that's what happened. Greg Hardy wins unanimous decision. I thought Greg Hardy would win. Calvin Kattar, Jeremy Stephens. The interesting thing to me about this fight was as soon as it started, Jeremy Stephens was incredibly aggressive, really took a lot of space away from Calvin Kattar, and came at him with some heat. Very, very heavy punches. So I had my tea this morning. It's morning to me, by the way, because I worked till 3 in the morning on the SiriusXM post-fight show. So I only woke up like an hour ago, so it's just long nights in UFCs for me. So I sleep all day the next day. So to me, this is morning, although it's like 12:30. So Jeremy Stephens came at Calvin Kattar with some heat, and what I noticed is Kattar dealt with it very, very well. It wasn't just, oh, he has a great offense, great kickboxing, all stuff. He was aware. He was moving his feet. He was moving his head. He was dealing well with the offense that's coming at him. If you're going to be a great kickboxer or boxer, you have to be able to deal with somebody coming at you, not just you're going to outslug everybody. It has to be, you have to deal with your opponent's offense. Great jiu-jitsu guys deal with pressure. It's the same kind of thing. So Calvin Kattar dealt well with the physical pressure of Jeremy Stephens, making the octagon small, and the power he was throwing at him. A lot of heat. And I thought Calvin Kattar dealt with it well in the beginning. That was kind of like, okay, Jeremy Stephens, the veteran guy, I'm going to put some pressure on this dude. I'm going to see what this kid's got, see if he mentally folds, and he didn't. That set up the knockout later. Is, okay, I deal with your aggression, I get your timing, and then bow. And that's what happened. That elbow, beautifully placed. Oh, right here, almost like crack. Right on the nose, dropped him. I have to give credit where it's due. I really do. Jason Herzog, a friend of mine, full disclosure, really love the guy. I thought it was a great stoppage because that's what you're supposed to do. The shot nailed him. Crack. And he falls down. And Kattar gets on top of him and throws some strikes. And you see Herzog standing right over him going, okay, is he going to pop back? Because sometimes guys get hit with a good shot. Boom. And they wake up. They pop back to get back in the fight. And it gave him a few punches to get back in the fight. Only a couple got through. But the point was Jeremy Stephens didn't pop back and suddenly get into the fight. He was still shelled up and taking punches. And he stopped the fight. That's how you're supposed to do it. If a dude gets dropped, boom. I don't necessarily like unless it's really bad, like, Rosenstrike, for example. Unless it's like the guy's just, eyes wide shut, it's over. You want to give them an opportunity to maybe get back into the fight. And, some guys, it's a flash knockdown, and they mentally get back in it. So Herzog's ability to stand over him and go, okay, if he takes another couple, I'm out. It gives him another couple and jumps in. It's over. Really good stoppage. Great win by Calvin Kattar. Francis Ngannou. Versus Jairzinho Rosenstrike. Ngannou hit scary. And that's exactly what happened. It's faster than I thought it would be. I thought it would be longer than this. But the interesting thing was it was miss, left hook, boom. So I think it was a 4-punch combination. And the fourth one landed. Just twisted him like a beer cap. And it was over before he hit the ground. I mean, this guy just hit scary hard. And that's why I picked him to win. I just didn't see a situation where Rosenstrike could stand with Francis Ngannou for 15 minutes and not get that punch landed on him. Now, it was quick and brutal, and he showed once again that he's a threat in the heavyweight division, that he should get a title shot after DC Stipe. So, great performance by Francis Ngannou. Didn't even break a sweat. Rosenstrike didn't even know where the hell he was. But it showed the power of Ngannou again against a technical striker. If you go straight back against Ngannou, you're done. If you don't mix in some wrestling against Ngannou, you're done. Yes, Derek Lewis, terrible fight. But aside from that, you have to have some other skills in terms of your wrestling, jiu-jitsu, something like that, and you cannot go straight back. If you're going to strike with that guy, tick-tock, make him find you. And if you don't do that, you're done. And I think Ngannou showed that again. Henry Cejudo, Dominick Cruz. Now, I'll talk about stoppage in a second, obviously, but I thought Henry Cejudo had a good game plan. Leg kick, don't get emotional. And that's what he did. He didn't really commit too much to a takedown. I think he was aware and respectful of the scrambling ability of Dominick Cruz. And what he didn't want to do is overcommit to a takedown and end up in some kind of scramble where Dominick Cruz is able to land volume punches. That's what he's great at. So what I liked about Henry Cejudo, it was leg kicks to slow Dominick Cruz down. And he never overextended. He never threw those wide punches, the combinations where you're like, I'm going to get this guy. Dominick Cruz loves that. I interviewed TJ Dillashaw earlier this week for SiriusXM, and he said, Cruz made me emotional for the first time in my career. I didn't like the guy. I want to go out there and knock him out. And that's exactly what he wanted. And he was able to counter me because I was looking to take his head off. Cejudo never did that. He never did that. It was like leg kick, leap in the occasional punch, get back out, stay safe, stay composed, stay calm. So I thought he had a good game plan against Dominick Cruz. Dominick Cruz angling the whole time, but if you kick the legs out from under him, he can't angle anymore. So Henry Cejudo had a really great game plan, and I thought he followed it well. And Dominick Cruz, to his part, was moving and angling and doing what he needed to do. The finish itself, the ironic part of this is I thought if he had stopped at a half a second earlier, it would have been a better stoppage. As weird as that sounds, he stopped it right when Dominick Cruz popped back to his feet. It looked like he was trying to get away and may have gotten away. I don't know. But I thought a half second before when he was on the ground, even though those weren't big punches with boom, 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 when he was stuck there and wasn't going anywhere, that's when you wave the fight off. Dominick Cruz pops back to his feet. He's still taking punches, but he popped back to his feet to escape, and then he stops it. So I thought the timing made it look worse than it was. And everybody who knows me and has listened to any of these videos, there's just a window of judgment between terrible, this shouldn't have been stopped, that was awful, and oh my God, you're going to get this guy killed. Anything in the middle there is a judgment call. It's somewhere in the middle, right? And was that a stoppable moment? Yes. Was it a little early? Yes. What I didn't like about it was the fact that, once again, he stopped it right when it looked like Dominick Cruz was doing something. Also, and I really want to hear in the comment section about this, does it matter who it is and the stakes of the fight? Because a lot of people were bitching, title fight, 2 seconds left in the round. Come on, it's a legend in Dominick Cruz. You got to give him those extra 2 seconds. It's an interesting point of view. I mean, should a referee consider that? My thing is, you might consider if a guy's used to coming back, and he generally comes back in those situations. I think the evidence of what they've done in previous fights is important. The time left and the stakes and all these things, I think that's less of a. I think who the fighter is more of a should be more of an issue than the time that's left and the stakes of the fight. I remember, for example, Luke Rockhold, Chris Weidman, when Rockhold had Mount on him, I think it was the end of round 2, and was just beating him through the canvas, just killing him. And I remember Herb Dean not stopping it and me thinking, if this were any other fight, he'd stop this. But he doesn't want to stop a championship fight with a second left in the round. So Weidman got the piss beaten out of him from full mouth from Luke Rockhold till the end of the round. So that kind of thing. Also, if you're watching, if you're paying attention today, Dominick Cruz said the referee, Keith Peterson, smelled like alcohol. The issue I have with that is he's around commissioners. If you've ever been to a fight or been part of a fight or part of promotions, those refs and the commissioners and the doctors, they're all together all the time. You couldn't be inebriated and get away with it. Maybe with social distancing, got a mask on and stuff, and people couldn't smell it. That's possible, but they're around each other. It'd be like drinking, 2 feet away from your boss. You'd get caught. You couldn't go to an office job where you're all in the same cubicle and one guy's drunk and nobody knows it. So that's the thing that gets me about it is there's not a lot of you could go off somewhere and drink. But when you came back, if Dominick Cruz can smell it, that means the commissioners can smell it, and the judges can smell it, and they're his boss, and they'd pull him. So that's the only weird thing there is how could you get away with that when they're all together? It's not like referees are in their own little separate area. They're always around commissioners, and then at certain times fighters do the referee who's not working the actual fight is doing the grease check and all that stuff and the mouthpiece. He's right there in front of a fighter. They would smell it too. And only Dominick Cruz has said that he reeked of alcohol. So it's a little weird. I'm interested to see what comes out in the next couple of days. But an accusation like that from Dominick Cruz carries a lot of weight. So I hate to see that because if it is just sour grapes and he's upset, okay, I understand being upset at a stoppage. When you go after a referee like, Colby Covington did against Mark Goddard, people listen to that shit. And those referees take a ton of heat. And that would be really unfortunate because that's a serious accusation that he was inebriated during a fight. And if that's just sour grapes and he's looking for something to say, that's effed up. But if he's right, that needs to be investigated. But the one thing functionally I'm trying to tell you guys is referees aren't by themselves. They're working around the other commissioners all the time. And if he got caught, that'd be a big deal. So I don't know. We'll see. Justin Gaethje, Tony Ferguson, the one upset on the card that I was like, all right, picking this one, but who knows? I tweeted something that I'm going to bring it up here that I want to explain. And what I tweeted was, let me actually find it. It was about Justin Gaethje early on in the fight. And what I said was, where am I here? What I said was, what I said was that Justin Gaethje looked uncomfortable in the early rounds. And what I meant by that was I thought, like everybody else, Justin Gaethje would throw like everything he had in the first couple of rounds. So in the first 2 rounds, when I said he looked uncomfortable and the clock is ticking is what I actually tweeted, I thought he would throw combinations hoping to catch Tony Ferguson in the first 2 or 3 rounds because he wouldn't have the gas for rounds 4 and 5. So I was concerned watching it early that he was landing these single shots and then resetting and then landing single shots some more. I didn't know he had a long game in mind. I didn't know. I thought he was winning rounds. Some people think because I tweeted that I thought he was losing. I didn't. I thought he was winning. But I didn't think this single shot strategy would knock Tony Ferguson out in the first 3 rounds, which I thought he needed to do. I didn't know that he was conserving his energy for a long game kind of fight. And once that became apparent, I was like, oh man, he's good. He's purposely landing one single shots and a resetting rather than throwing combinations that might wear him out. I thought he would throw combinations because he needed a knockout, but he was conserving his energy and just kind of picking Tony Ferguson apart with single shots. Very, very interesting. But throughout this fight, it was like he kept landing big ones. And he would land a big one, and he'd land a big one, and he'd reset, and he'd breathe, and he'd land a big one. And once it became apparent past round 3 that, dude, he can win a long fight. He's already put 3 rounds in the bank. After the 4th round, I was like, man, this is his game plan. When Trevor Whitman said, bring down your power and your punches. You're punching too hard. We need to conserve the energy. When it was like, oh, that's their game plan, is to land big punches throughout and then reset, not go wild and crazy and get him out of there early. Great performance by Justin Gaethje, man. He hit Ferguson with shots that would drop a rhinoceros. And Ferguson was able to take him as long as he could. I did like the stoppage at the end. I don't know. I haven't seen a lot of complaints about it, but you could see where this was. Like, he had taken enough. Okay, all right, we're not going to let him take any more big punches just because they were so devastating. And greatest performance of Justin Gaethje's career, for sure. Now, obviously, puts him in line to get a shot at Khabib and how amazing that fight would be, and I will break that down when it comes. But is it a shame to see Tony Ferguson get so close to that dream fight and lose to Justin Gaethje? Yeah, it's disappointing. I want to see Khabib and Ferguson as much as anybody. But the better man won last night. The guy with the better game plan, who did the most damage, he's the guy who won. And there's a certain purity to that, where it's like, yeah, I want to see this fight happen, but the best need to fight the best. And right now, the best are Justin Gaethje and Khabib. So I'm kind of like, I take solace in that. This wasn't, they were just getting warmed up. Gaethje landed a big one and Ferguson's out. Ferguson wasn't dominating the fight and then he got caught in something. And, oh, man, No, the better fighter won last night. And regardless of how much you want to see Khabib Ferguson, and who knows, we might see it somewhere down the road under different circumstances, but the better man won. And I liked the accuracy. I loved the power. I loved the composure. He didn't let himself get wrapped up in any other kind of fight that Tony Ferguson tried to throw at him. I am surprised Ferguson didn't go crazy for did a couple Imanari rolls late. They weren't going to work. But pull guard, fly for some crazy leg lock, clinch and do something. He didn't do that. He stayed at medium range where Ferguson could land big punches the entire fight. It was almost like waiting through his opponent's offense had always worked before, and Ferguson kept waiting for Gaethje to wear down. Like, my chin will last. I know my chin will last. He'll eventually slow down and I can get him, and it never happened. But he never made that drastic change that, I'd make if I were getting hit by Justin Gaethje for 3-4 rounds. Like, okay, it's time to go for a flying triangle. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work, but maybe I can initiate a scramble or a ground game or get something going. Ferguson never, with all the skills he has and all the funky unorthodox techniques he's so good at, he never went to that well, which I found unbelievable in a fight that he was clearly losing. So, great night of fights. Very interesting stuff. Congratulations to Justin Gaethje. Great performance by him. And I'll be back to preview Wednesday's show. It's going to be another busy week. Appreciate you.